Hello everyone, Tyler King here with another episode of NuReview. Today I'm doing a review of the 1988 Gary Numan album, Metal Rhythm. So Metal Rhythm is released in September of 1988 on IRS Records after the dissolution of Gary's own record label, Numa Records. Unlike the last couple of albums, The Fury and Strange Charm, which had production work entirely by the Wave team, Gary Numan actually self-produces Metal Rhythm. Returning musicians on this album are going to be Russell Bell, Tessa Niles, we get Chris Payne, and of course we get Dick Morrissey with Andy Coughlin on bass. However, much like the last album, besides Tessa Niles featured on almost every song, all of the other musicians that I just mentioned are only featured on one or two songs at the most on this album, with Gary himself actually handling drum programming duties for the first time. The album opens with This Is Emotion, which is the third in a series of songs where Gary is telling us what this is. First there was This Is New Love, then This Is Love, and now This Is Emotion. The song is a little bit more up-tempo, a little bit more aggressive feeling than anything we've heard on the last couple of records. The program drums are reduced to just a simple kick and snare, and as the song progresses, we get this wailing guitar in the background of it all. Lyrically, Gary is very angry once again at, whoever, but unlike on Strange Charm and The Fury, the instrumentation on this song actually reflects the lyrical themes. And then following that, we have Hunger, in which Gary wants to tell you about a friend of his who woke up in a room that looked like black and white movies with a strange woman in his bed. Yeah, and he does it over some slapped bass, funked out electric guitar, and cheesy synth horn blasts. The only interesting thing I can think of this song is that the live album for this album, The Skin Mechanic, is named after a line of this song. And the chorus is actually pretty good. I just wish that the rest of the song had the same quality that he gave to the chorus. Up next we have New Anger, on which Gary is trying to be sinister and intimidating over these scathing electric guitars and, again, synth horn blasts. I don't know why he's putting those into the mix on this album all of a sudden. But he's singing about how people have written him off and, take your best shot at me now, guys. And he's doing it on one of the worst albums he's ever going to release. Interesting to note is that the US release of this album was titled New Anger instead of Metal Rhythm. And when the backing singers on the song sing, "Do you want it?" I want to say no. No, I don't want it at all. Please. Next we have Devious, which opens with some interesting exotic percussive sounds before turning again into an aggressive synth funk number. The lyrics are about Gary seeing a girl on the cover of a magazine who'd shown him things he'd never seen. The backing vocalists again continue to sing, "Do you want it? Do you need it?" I mean, maybe they're trying to convince me that I do want to like this album and I do need to like this album, but I can't like this album. I honestly can't think of one positive thing about this song except for maybe the first 15 or 20 seconds of it. Following that, we have America. And America starts out with this very gentle sounding synth that kind of welcomes us in. But much like the previous song, the intro is just a mask of the horror that is to come. It's just another aggressive synth funk number. I mean, this one has kind of a nice vocal melody on it. Unfortunately, the lyrics, he's kind of contradicting himself over and over again. And he's continually singing, "I'm over you," And then in the chorus he says, "I'm looking for you." It's just like, Gary, make up your mind, please. And the annoying synth that's all over the song doesn't do it any favors either. Luckily, following probably the two worst songs on the album, we're given, without a shadow of a doubt, the best song on the album with Voice. It opens with a kind of ominous sounding synth melody, which is going to be repeated by Tessa Niles during the chorus. Some of the lyrics aren't too strong, especially the first verse, but the rest of the song really is given lyrically a treatment that the rest of the album really could have used. It's a slower number with no obnoxious synth funk elements. Gary is, he's telling us, I don't like God. I don't like people when they say I'm things I'm not. And it does kind of have a feeling of been there, done that. But the vocals and the build up to the chorus and the instrumentation are so good that that makes up for it. Following My Breathing off of Strange Charm, this is probably going to be my second favorite late 80s Gary Numan song. Following that, we have Respect, in which Gary is trying to be tough and intimidating over another upbeat synth funk song. He says, "You're just boys, you don't know what you've angered," and from the sound of it, it doesn't seem like they angered anything that's too intimidating. And the chorus, which is complete with more female backing vocals and more saxophone solos, kind of tells us how little of respect we should have for Gary Numan at this point in his career. This is the same guy who wrote Replicas. Like, this is the same guy who wrote Metal, who wrote This Wreckage, who wrote Remind Me to Smile, and I mean, it's just disappointing when you think about it that way. And unfortunately, this is the one song on the album to feature Russell Bell, and the song just feels like a wasted throwaway song. And then we have Young Heart, which opens with a bass that seems to have come from the same template as the bass in the Seinfeld theme, and you just know you're in for some shit right off the bat. Gary refers to himself as a hideous new disease and a morning filled with shame, which are some really cool lyrics, but it sounds like every other fucking song on this album. And those lines also are going to be almost immediately nullified when Gary sings the line, "Does your mother know where you've been?" On the song, Gary says he's not ashamed. Well, he should be. He should be ashamed of this song. And then following that, we have Cold Metal Rhythm, which is kind of the title track. And a point I made in my review of Strange Charm is that if you're going to have a title track on an album, it better be really good. And again, like on Strange Charm, it's really not very good, and it just sounds like almost every other song that is on this album, and it's almost completely forgettable. Female backing vocals over pounding drums, wow, haven't heard that one before. Gary all mad and saying stuff like, "This isn't music, this is survival," or "Radio station, thanks for nothing." Wow, haven't heard that one. Dick Morrissey doing a sax solo, wow, what a fresh idea. The vocal melody of the chorus, which is sung entirely by Tessa Niles, is the highlight of the song. Like, that's saying something. And then the album leaves us off with the song Don't Call My Name. And Don't Call My Name starts with some more exotic percussive sounds, and Gary decides again to leave us off with a ballad like he's done on the last few records. It's very atmospheric, it's very cold sounding, and it kind of does help me to forget the last few songs on the album. Unfortunately, once Gary does start singing, the lyrics are incredibly short. He's really only singing for maybe 20 or 30 seconds on this song, and immediately after that we are treated to a fucking saxophone solo. And I know that I keep saying this in my reviews, but it's true. If it wasn't for the use of the liberal saxophone that Gary does on his late 80s albums, there are so many songs that I would enjoy. but I don't, because Gary Numan putting saxophone inside of his song is like shitting in a sundae and trying to tell me that it's good. And it sucks because I really like the song up until the point that the fucking saxophone comes in. And that's Metal Rhythm. So, I mean, I don't know what I can say about this album that I haven't already said. I mean, in case you can't tell, it's not my favorite Gary Numan album. It's probably in like my bottom 3 Gary Numan albums. There's a level of frustration that comes when listening to this album because of a couple things. I mean, he's trying to be aggressive, he's trying to be dark, he's trying to come off as very angry, but putting synth horns all over the goddamn thing doesn't help. Putting real horns all over the goddamn thing doesn't help. I mean, if you want to be angry and aggressive, I get it, because he's got the angry guitars all over this album. But take out the backing vocals, take out the fucking slapped bass, take out the fucking saxophone. While we do have a really great song with Voice, in about a month, or maybe even a couple of weeks, I'm not going to be able to tell you how any of the other songs on this album go. And I mean, besides Voice, there's not really any other song on this album that I enjoy. I mean, This Is Emotion is alright, but I think that I lean a little bit more towards that song just because it's the first song on the album. I mean, if it had opened up with Hunger, I might think that Hunger is a good song just because it's the first one on the album. It's just really frustrating because of how far Gary Numan has fallen listening to this album and comparing it to something like Replicas or The Pleasure Principle or Telecon. So yeah, favorite song is Voice. I can't tell you another favorite song off this album because really that's the only song that this album has going for it. Least favorite songs are going to be Devious, America, and then, I don't know, Respect, Shame, Cold Metal Rhythm, Hunger. I mean, none of them really are going to be anything to write home about. But Devious and America especially are really bad. And so that's my review for Metal Rhythm. So what'd you think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Is Metal Rhythm your favorite Gary Numan album? Is it your least favorite Gary Numan album? Does it bring you back to a specific time in your life? Please let me know in the comment box below. And following this, I'm going to be doing a review of the Gary Numan and Bill Sharp collaboration Automatic before finishing out Gary Numan's late 80s, early 90s period with Outland and Machine and Soul. So that's going to be fun. When rating this album, I mean, it's difficult because if it wasn't for Voice, there would be no saving grace on this album. But because there is, and because it at least feels like a whole cohesive album, which is something that Strange Charm lacked, I would probably give it the same rating that I give Strange Charm, which is going to be 4 out of 10. So, until next time, this is Tyler King, NuReview, Gary Numan, Metal Rhythm. Four out of 10.